Good morning. We are going to see the interaction diagrams. Already we've seen about the class diagrams. So the EML interaction diagram is the dynamic diagram which is available in OOAD. So it is a kind of dynamic diagram. So UML includes the interaction diagrams to illustrate the interaction between the objects via messages. So how the objects are interacted in the particular domain is shown via set of messages between the objects by passing messages between the objects. So interaction diagrams are mainly used for dynamic object modeling, and there are two types of interaction diagrams: sequence diagram and communication diagram. This shows the sequence diagram. Sequence diagram also illustrates the interaction between the objects via messages, and here A and B are the objects, and it shows the interaction between the two objects via the messages known as do 1, do 2, and do 3. So these are the messages. And here, the ordering of messages is arranged in order. So we can easily determine the ordering of messages in sequence diagram clearly. And if we want to add any new object in the sequence diagram, it should be added at the right side only. If we want to add the object C means, so we have to add at the right side only. So it follows the fence format. And it also requires more space for adding objects. We need to show many objects in the sequence diagram, and it requires more space to represent all the objects. Here, there are two types of messages. This is found message and this is synchronous message. The found message means the source of the message. We cannot determine the source of the message where the message is generated. And these are the synchronous messages. And next is the communication diagram, second type of interaction diagram. So the communication diagram also illustrates the interaction between the objects in a graph or network format. There in sequence diagram, we can clearly determine the ordering of messages. Here, the objects can be placed anywhere, and in the sequence diagram, the objects should be added at the right side of the object only. Here, we can place the objects anywhere in the diagram, and here the ordering of objects, it is difficult to identify the ordering of objects in the communication diagram. Here the ordering can be identified via the sequence number which was provided before the messages, and here the same messages are specified between the A and B objects do 1, do 2, and do 3. And do 1 is the found message, and the first message is do 2, and the second message is do 3, which was identified using the sequence number. And there are several differences between the sequence diagram and communication diagram. As I said earlier, so the sequence diagram shows the clear ordering of messages between the objects, but in communication diagram, we can identify it is difficult to identify the ordering of messages. We can identify the ordering of messages via sequence numbers. Here in sequence diagram, there are large set of notations will be used, but in with communication diagram, only fewer notation are used in the communication diagram. And when come into the space, occupation of space, the sequence diagram will occupy more space because if we want to add new objects means we have to extend to the right, so it occupies more space. But in communication diagram, we can add new objects in anywhere, so it occupies less space. So these are all the difference between the sequence diagram and communication diagram. So the major strength of the sequence diagram is the ordering will be clearly shown, and large set of notations will be used, and weaknesses, it occupies more space. But in communication diagram, the strength is it occupies less space, but the weaknesses, it is difficult to identify the sequence of messages, and it uses fewer number of notations in the diagram. And there are several notations used in the interaction diagram. That is both the sequence diagram and communication diagram. So the first type of notation is lifeline box. So this is the lifeline box. So this lifeline box is used to specify the objects. And we can specify the objects in the lifeline box using these types of notations. That is, the object can be specified with this like notation, that is colon and sale. Here sale represents the class of the object, and here we can represent number of we can create number of objects. Here the number of objects is not specified, and here s1 colon sale means here we are specifying the specific object s1. Sale, for the sale class there will be one object will be created known as s1. So like that we can represent the objects in number of ways. And the next notation used is messages, message expression. So the interaction diagram shows the interaction between the objects via messages. So there are number of messages will be used, synchronous message and asynchronous messages. So here we mostly use the synchronous messages between the objects. And this is the syntax for representing the synchronous message. Return equal to message and the number of parameters, return type of the parameter. So this is the syntax of specifying the messages. Next, a singleton object. We can also specify the singleton objects in the lifeline box. So the singleton object can create. So we can create only one object with the for the class store, and it is specified using the notation known as one at the right corner of the lifeline box, upper right corner of the lifeline box. So these are all the common notations used in the interaction diagram. Thank you.